Yes. Okay. So, good evening. Thank you all for coming here. I'm very honored to do this talk. This is my first time, so I'll try to do my best here, and hopefully the demo gods are with me. Thank you, Patrick, for inviting me on that strange party where we only got chicken and beer, and we said, well, let's do something with the talk. So who am I? I'm Marck Oemar. I'm a cloud engineer at Nationale Nederlanden. My former job was a Linux engineer, or at least that's what I called myself. I worked at several big, well, not big, but enterprise kind of companies like Fortis and ABN and IBM and the whole bunch. That's where we did the classical stuff that you all know. So the run and the change and everything manual and stuff takes a long time. I started working at NN 2 years ago, and the first thing that they said was, are you able or are you open for doing something totally different? Because you might lose your job in a few months. And I said, well, sure, of course. So the proposition was, we're going to the cloud. And well, what does that mean? Yeah, because people that are investing in us, well, you guys, they want, well, not you guys, but people want to have less cost. So going to the cloud is, of course, the best solution. Well, not per se, but that's what I thought. So that was a new adventure for NN, and what they did was, let's try it with all the old processes and the old ways of doing things, and let's just extend to the cloud. And this kind of failed a few times with a lot of pain and a loss of money. So the last time was a year ago, I think, and well, management came to people that were hopefully interested, and their goal was to well, transform the IT culture, and that was something totally different. They didn't have a clue what that meant, but that's what they wanted because somebody told them. Our job was to actually deliver infrastructure products and services to the organization in a DevOps way. So, I'm not going to talk about DevOps, whatever, but that's a whole challenge. So this is my introduction, because we're doing it kind of wrong, in the sense that these kind of companies, and some of you know, are all about central IT and delivering infrastructure to the application developers and the business. Well, that gives a lot of complexity. And I'm going to talk about how we are trying to navigate through that complexity. So the agenda, let's talk about the challenges, and a little bit about Concourse, and then we'll try to go deep. And if you have any questions, just interrupt me, and we'll see where we end up. So, the objective for us as an infrastructure team was to deliver a platform, meaning a platform on AWS with some kind of SaaS, a compliancy SaaS. For financial companies, this is often important because it needs to be hardened, etc. With controls for logging and security, vulnerability checking, all that kind of stuff. The network needs to be in place. User management also needs to be in place. And this needs to be provisioned for multiple businesses and customers, meaning in multiple AWS accounts. So the whole cross-account complexity. On top of that, we deliver those services, AWS services, with kind of a SaaS on it, again. Also, we deliver a Linux base build, which is also hardened. and needs to be delivered in an automated manner. And also Windows. So somebody was talking about Windows, that it's really horrible. So we, yeah, I'm doing Windows now from Linux. So it's and also provide CI/CD capabilities to the organization. So we chose GitLab as a fit-for-purpose VCS system and also CI capability. Well, whatever build capabilities the business wants. All delivered in an automated manner, which was new for us. And then here comes the complexity, or at least the makes it difficult. There is a separation of responsibility, where we deliver these services, and the business can do whatever they want with it. So for us, this is kind of the limit, and we kind of went about it like AWS did, saying we only provide you guys with these services and products, and do whatever you want with it as you please. If you want to deliver your services to the front in an automated manner, do it. And if you want to do it manually, well, then you have a problem with showing that you're in control. But if you want to do it like that, that's your choice. So, what makes it complex? The separation of responsibility. And as you saw in the picture, there are a lot of components here that eventually, when you're automating stuff, needs to be depending on each other. And so you'll have the chicken and egg problem, you'll have circular dependencies, and you have to solve it in some kind of manner. And also the scope is well, broader because we're deploying into multiple AWS accounts. So, who here has experienced Concourse CI? Awesome. Okay. So let's quickly dive in, because you had a talk earlier, or the last time about Concourse. We started out with GitLab CI, and we found well, that there were limitations there, specifically that there's only one way to have a pipeline defined, and it's limited to only one Git repository. So, and to give you the last thing is that we decided to build our whole infrastructure, everything that you saw there, from one repository. Everything is in there. So whatever is going on, it's all in there. So, Concourse CI. Concourse CI, we found that it sets pipelines as a very important thing, and it's actually only about pipelines. So that's very nice. It's also very unopinionated. That's the word, but it doesn't have an opinion on a world of Java or infrastructure or Windows or whatever. We're only doing, or pipelines are only configured in a declarative manner, so it's pipeline as code. It's also good. And there's no Snowflake build solution, so all your workers, your slaves are all, well, throw away. Quickly, there are three concepts here. There are tasks, which are kind of the smallest configuration for something to do. In tasks, you can have jobs, or I'm sorry, in jobs you can have tasks, and jobs have inputs and outputs, and those are resources. I'll come back to those. So, just quickly to show you. When I saw this page, I was very happy, because these are the resources that Concourse can work with. So it's not just about a repository, a Git repository, but it's kind of everything that you would like to have. And if there's a resource that you want, it's not there, then just make it yourself. So maybe S3 could be helpful for you, or something with a Docker repository. I see Vagrant Cloud there, of course. But also things like, something with OpenStack. It's very interesting. So it could be anything, even AMI updates. So it could even send a mail somewhere if you want.
Or resources like events, like I saw an email down there. Is it like when an email happens, it triggers a build?
Yeah, and also the other way around. So resources are capable of being some kind of input to a pipeline and or an output. So, and that kind of makes everything possible. So let's try to dive in. Quickly, just a little bit of a background info. When you see me working with Concourse, you'll have to know that we're kind of having a sort of a branch manager that's going on top of it. So the way we work is that because we're a developed infrastructure, we would like every DevOps engineer, or cloud engineer I should say, to have their own development environment with the resources that you would like to have. So if you're starting something, then start to develop on something, then you're able to work on any resource that's built in our pipeline. So you get a whole set of resources, AWS resources I should say. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that we're using Jinja, Ansible Jinja, a template language, to make the pipelines more complex but more suitable to what we want to happen, depending on which branch you are. So just a little bit of background info. So this is the challenge that, or not the, yeah, well, it's a challenge. This is the story that I'm going to dive in. XL Deploy is a tool from CVIA to deploy applications in kind of an old school way. It's just an application, and they were asked, we were asked to have that as a service. So this is just a simple pipeline. We use Ansible to actually declare what's supposed to be in the image of this product. Well, that's in our VCS. And we go through a few stages, some testing, blah, 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 and then we go to Packer to actually build the image. We're doing some testing there, and then you'll have an image. That's very cool, and that's okay. And also, in this XLD image, we need, for instance, as an example, some kind of plugin that needs to be developed in a separate place, but also needs to be put in this AMI. So there you have another pipeline. That's kind of the same thing. So it builds and then it uploads the plugin to an S3 bucket. So that's two pipelines here. The third one is we actually want to do some kind of CD, so deploy. We're using Terraform to declare our infra as code, and do a deployment there. So those are three pipelines. So here you see, what order should this be? Well, we can make a long pipeline, but then we have the difficulty of separating those pipelines if they're being triggered separately. So what you actually want to happen is this. When the pipeline of the XLD plugin is finished and it uploads its artifact to an S3 bucket or whatever artifactory or whatever you want, there should be some kind of trigger that the next pipeline that needs that new artifact, that pipeline should be triggered. So what should happen is once the playbook of this AMI of XLD is being changed, this pipeline should be run, and once the XLD plugin is being changed, that pipeline should be run, and this pipeline should be run.
Mark?
Yeah.
So the AMI contains a running deploy
I'm sorry?
instance. So the AMI,
Yeah.
the result is a running XL deploy.
No, the result is an artifact. That's
Okay,
an
it's
image.
an artifact.
Yeah. So, and the deployment is the third pipeline below. And so this is creating immutable images or instances or images, I should say, and the configuration is done during build time. And so we have a nice new image here. And then what should happen is actually the deployment. So there should be again a trigger to trigger that deployment. This is what we want, and I'll go even further. You see that there is a playbook for XLD, and Packer is using a source AMI. You can use a source AMI from Amazon, but for us that's not hardened. So we also have to provide to us and to our customers a base build that's hardened. So there's another pipeline which builds the base AMI, Linux. And there's another dependency. So if there's a new base image, it will trigger this pipeline, and then it will trigger that pipeline, and then it should do a redeploy. So that's to automate everything and get, and how did Jess Humble say it? Not to fire people, but to give them other work. So, before I dive in, again, a little bit of information. Should I do this? No, I'll come back to that later. So, can everybody see it? Hope so. So this is an example of the pipeline that you just saw, and this pipeline only creates a base AMI. It's just an example. You're missing all kinds of jobs. Also, it's a pseudo code pipeline, so that I won't go over time with this demo. And what you can see here is these resources and these jobs. I'll go to the code. And we'll start with the resources. This is how you define a resource in Concourse. This is a Git resource, and this Git resource only looks at this path block. So if something changes in this Ansible playbook, it will trigger, and it will provide a new version of this resource to whatever pipeline. There's also another resource, which in this case is kind of a pseudo resource because it's a file in a AWS S3 bucket, but it represents a new AMI version. So these are two different resources. So again to the pipeline. One thing left. Where the magic happens. I've defined two jobs. One is static analysis, and the only thing I do here is I say get this AMI, git code, so that's the playbook, and trigger this pipeline. And the next job is build this AMI, also based on the trigger of a new code, new playbook commit, triggered, but the static analysis job needs to be passed. So there you get this kind of, well, sequential order. And then do all kind of stuff. And then at the end, actually this is really fun for me, is when you're done, output a resource, meaning put this file in the S3 bucket that we just defined as a resource. So that's it. This is the pipeline. Let's trigger it quickly. Okay, so something should happen. Yes. It pulls the Git resource, by the way, and other resources, and it's like I think 30 seconds or more or less, whatever you want to. So it's as always, will it happen or not?
Do you know if it's possible to configure with like webhooks instead of polling as well?
Yeah, sure. And if not, you can create your own resource. So this is really silly, of course, because it's the first demo. It should work. Come on. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so that's 1 minute. I'm just being too hasty. So the cool thing here is I can click on it and I can see whatever happens. So this was very fast. It did a static analysis of my AMI. And now the next job will be triggered because the first job was passed. This task that I defined is also done, and now it's uploading a file to S3 right now. And that could be the AMI that we have built. Yes, time, soon. Almost there. Okay, there we go. So that was a very simple pipeline. Now the example that I just showed you with all those pipelines, let's get them in. It's also pseudo. A bunch of resources. Let's enable the jobs. Oh. Okay, let's update the pipeline. And now we have a new pipeline that's kind of more complex. So again, there are a few pipelines that are defined there, and one is already running. So the first one we already saw. So these are the base images. There's also a pipeline here to build an XLD plugin. There is a pipeline here, or jobs at least, for the XLD AMI, that's the application, and the deployment, and that's Terraform. And what you just saw is that this pipeline is new, and it thinks like, oh wait, there is a version that I didn't, there's a version of the AMI that I didn't run for yet. So I will run now. So what happens here is you have a resource here that's a Git resource for these jobs. You have a Git resource here that's for these jobs. The artifact for the building of the AMI is actually an S3 or an AMI artifact. The artifact for the XLD plugin is also S3. And then here it goes along with the base AMI and the XLD. And it outputs another kind of artifact, which is the XLD AMI. And that's being used in the final phases for deployment. So this is a way to actually combine all kinds of jobs in any kind of way you want. And let's look at the code. For instance, let me see. So you have a base AMI, let me see. Here you see that I defined all the resources that I would like to have and to get triggered by. And so the trigger is basically a way to get all kinds of dependencies in there.
What happens if you set trigger false there? What's the difference?
Then it won't get triggered. But what actually happens with resources is that the resource is being made available in the worker. So if I have like 4 resources here, all these resources are being made available in the container. That's where the worker is doing his job. So you can use them. Well, that's basically it. Another cool thing is here. Let me see if I can. Yeah. So there's this job that is called build an XLD AMI, and it has 2 tasks. So this is a task, and this is a task. I can create local outputs and inputs so that I can kind of bring information or data or files or whatever from one task to another one within a job. So I just define an output. When you when it's executing this stuff, it first creates this folder and it's empty, and then you can do stuff with it. So that's what I'm doing here. And then in the next task, or whatever task within that job, I can use that local folder, that local resource, I should say, to as an input. And then I can use stuff from there. So that could be very handy.
So that would limit the execution of both those servers to be on the same machine.
Yeah. But as you saw right now, I'm using kind of for this demo, I'm using S3. So what we also do is if we want to have information from one job to another one, or even one kind of virtual pipeline to the next one, just use something like S3. So that's basically it. Again, it's this picture. All those pipelines combined and triggered. Next example. Quickly Terraform. Who here is using Terraform or knows about Terraform? Okay, cool. So a little bit of a background info. So it's infra as code in a declarative kind of language. And what you can do actually is have this code that says create instances and create load balancers and whatnot, and make it so in Amazon. And the state of what you just created, store it remotely. So that's a remote state of this piece of combination of resources. What you also can do is the same thing there. It creates also a set of resources. But you can use the information of the state of those resources there above, that's in this remote state. You can use it in this Terraform template to do cool stuff. So that's a little bit of background info. So, next example is actually something of ours. So the old organization wants to use, kind of a classical product. So ArcSight is a way to pass through logging and do monitoring stuff, and there needs to be some kind of ArcSight connector or thingy in our environment. So it's an application again, and we need to provide this service for us and for the customers. So what happens here is that we said, okay, so we need to provide that application there. It will be run from an image that we're going to create, just like the XLD part. It will be based on another pipeline that's delivering an artifact that's the base hardened image of RHEL. And then another cool thing here is that we say when we deploy ArcSight, we actually need to know the network settings that we have in a certain account. So we need to have information on, let's just say, subnets or security groups in AWS. So what we've done is we've created Terraform isolated environments. We call them spaces, but that's just an arbitrary name, where we have information, where we deploy a piece of or a component, and we can give outputs on that component to other components. So in this case, this is something for Terraform, this is something for Terraform, and this Terraform environment needs to know about the subnets in a certain AWS account. So, there's a pipeline for that. And it looks a little bit like this. This is something that we actually use. I'll go slowly. This is a development branch. So it starts with the base AMI, code analysis, based on a Git resource. And then it's going to build. You see a resource here. This is also a Git resource because we can abstract pipeline tasks away from the pipeline. And you can put that also in a Git repository. But I don't want to trigger on it, because if I do that, then all jobs will be triggered at the same time, because I changed something in the pipeline configuration. So I don't want that. But I want to use it, of course. I need to know what needs to be done. So this is going to build. And this base MI is actually a kind of a, how do you say it, a pseudo artifact where it points to the actual AMI. And then this AMI is being used to have a hardening scan. When this is green, it will do a component test. with the AMI of ArcSight. And a component test is basically, I'm going to show you what it does. It's maybe better. So, quickly to the jobs that have succeeded. We're using Packer with Ansible, and here you can see the Ansible playbook. Doing all kinds of configuration during build time, and also a lot of hardening. We're using a stick and sys to as a baseline to have the proper hardening put in place. And at the end, it says, well, it's gone okay. I'm going to encrypt this volume because that's what we want also, that's important. Let's put away this AMI ID in an S3 bucket so other pipelines can use it. Yes. Okay, here we go. In the component test, we say we actually want to check if this playbook is going to be working fine. So what we do is we spin up ephemeral infrastructure with Terraform, and then use Ansible and some kind of test framework to actually test the ArcSight application, and then from there on it destroys the infrastructure. So that's another example. And then the last one. So we also have identity management, so creating roles and all kinds of stuff, and we do want to do that via a central way. So we have, I think, maybe 15 AWS accounts now. You only see here 4, and there are a lot of, or a few standard roles that people can use, like an engineering role or an admin role or whatever, and they need to be Terraformed also. So we use Concourse with Terraform to actually do that.
Sorry, I see there are dotted lines here. What does that indicate? What's the difference between a dotted line and a solid line?
Right. So the dotted line means that there's no trigger, or the trigger is false. So if I change something here, then it will take these resources and they're available to you in your tasks and in your jobs.
Right. But if those resources change, then it won't trigger a job?
It won't trigger.
Right.
Yeah. So, and these are remote state files for Terraform. And this is the part that I really like. So you can also start this off, but again, we're using Terraform to create a plan. Well, this one said, well, no changes. This one said, let's create all those policies. And then start to build. Oh, let me go back. Still busy. And when the plan is being done, it uses this this plan from S3 and doesn't apply. This was the no change, so nothing has happened. But this one created the resources. And this is really cool for us because, well, we're in control. That's what we want. So that's a brief story on how to use Concourse to implement your pipelines to develop infrastructure and make dependencies between pipelines and jobs. This is kind of a view of a bigger part of our infrastructure. Don't mind the red. That's not good, I know, but this is possible. And so once again, I'm a developer. This is a branch that I'm developing on. I shouldn't make a branch or a merge request for this because it's all kind of demo stuff that I've broken. But again, I have these resources are available to me to work on and more. I can change the pipelines and change the Terraform code and whatnot, do what I need to do to develop my infrastructure. So, kind of a takeaway. I like Concourse because it manages the dependencies between pipelines. You can create one big pipeline with all kinds of jobs in there, and everything is integrated in the pipeline. The resources are actually the big trick here. It's not just Git, it can be anything. So, thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. What exactly are you? Does that have to do with the content? I was wondering what you were doing to hardening your basic images compared to what was doing with EC2 itself.
Compared to? I'm sorry?
What is provided by EC2 itself?
The what or the why?
What additional hardening?
Oh, what additional hardening? Yeah, so we use the sys and the stick benchmark that's available, and it's hard. So how do you say it? So on one hand, you need to check if your system is hardened. So you need the right kind of tools for it. So we use the OpenSCAP format, or the SCAP format, I should say. And that's okay, and multiple tools can do that, either on Linux or on Windows. Windows is a little bit harder, but you'll get there if you get the right tool. But also you need to implement it. And so if you're creating your service with Ansible, you need, if there are like 100 policies, you need to create tasks for every one of those policies. So you need to hope that there are people on the internet that have created these Ansible code or Puppet or whatever, and then go from there. So what we do is during build time, first let's do the hardening, and then build it. In between, do some kind of testing also, and after the build, we need to have proof that the build that we provide is hardened, and that's the actual test there. And then spin up some infrastructure, have a scanner scan in it or to it, and then if it's green, then it's green, and then deploy or upload the artifact. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Are there cases where, what scenarios aren't Concourse a good fit, do you think?
Aren't?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's very unopinionated. So you can do anything you want, but if you would compare it to Jenkins, you'll have to kind of do a lot more if you have to make it that it fits comfortably against Maven, for example. So you have to do a lot of thinking work yourself. So that could be a disadvantage. Another thing is that it's heavily in development. They actually just took the thing that they designed for their own cloud, the Bosch thingy from Cloud Foundry, and they said, well, let's make it a binary and stuff. And it's in heavy development. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh well, thanks for your presentation. I was wondering, the visualization thing can be quite complex if you see all the information. Can you cluster some things together? No,
you'll have to beg the developers. So that's actually that's an issue. So one way of doing this is saying, okay, let's use groups. is what I just showed you guys. These are groups, and I can just create groups and show those jobs in there. And it's, as you can see, it's very hard for the UI to actually make a good representation of what's happening. This already hurts me. So there's also a command utility that's called fly for guys that know Concourse, and there you can do anything with listing the builds and stuff. But this definitely is a work in progress. It's not the best interface.
Okay.
Yeah.
You say group, and in XLD demo is a sub-view of platform.
No. Again, maybe I went too quickly. So these are groups. This is a group called XLD demo, and this just says only show these jobs. And then I have another group called ArcSite demo, and it says only show these jobs in there.
And then platform, that's everything.
Platform is everything.
So these are just different views.
Yeah.
It's just a subset.
Yeah, it's a subset. Yeah. You had a question? Oh, okay. Any other questions?
How do you test Ansible playbooks?
How to test Ansible playbooks?
Yes. The test them before pushing changes to branch.
Okay, so that's an interesting one. So I'll do two things. One, why do you want to test Ansible playbooks? Because Ansible is a piece of software that's already been tested. So I don't think you're saying unit tests, but that's important to know. I don't want to test if a certain declarative function is working for Ansible. I want to do component tests for the product that so it's kind of a system test, a black box thingy. So how to do that? There are lots of testing frameworks, or testing tools I should say, and for some of it right now we're just using Ansible assert. So that's kind of another playbook that's doing the assertion. I can hopefully quickly give you a quick example of that. If I can find it. So these are our testing playbooks. And let's, I'll just take one. I should go to roles, of course, for the same ArcSite thing. And this is the testing playbook. So let's start the software. I don't like the weighting, but it's an IBM product, so. And then see if stuff is running and other stuff. So this is very simple way. You can start here and then go to other tools if necessary. Also, what I just saw, because I like everything, is that tests. We also use Ansible and Terraform to create our ephemeral infrastructure. So this is kind of a cool thing because you have a playbook and you have a Terraform templates to create your instances and create your AMIs. And what we do is we say, we don't have connection to the production database, of course. So let's stop the database. So that's kind of a way of change the parameters or the infrastructure to actually have your test done. So yeah, Ansible, I find Ansible very powerful. Okay, any other questions? In the back there?
How many people are in the team that's working?
Way too much. Why are you asking?
I'm wondering how many people are using this for their daily work.
Yeah, so we have an infrastructure DevOps team that's, I think now 9 people. So the answer, way too much, is of course because of the momentum and the speed in terms of the Agile and the Scrum output. But apart from that, they're all using it. So for instance, if I see more than 8 branches at a time, I think that's not good, because then there is almost no pre-programming, and how many stories are we working on at the same time? So discipline is also a thing, and we found out that cloud costs money. So we're going back now, in the sense that I think within a few minutes all this is going to be shut down because of cost money, cost reduction. In there?
Yeah, so that kind of leads me to another question. How does Concourse handle like diverse branching? Because like if you say you have 3 different feature branches at the same time, does Concourse have a way of displaying that, yeah, one of these is failing, but the other 2 is succeeding?
No, so the resource is very specific. So I'll show you that. So we have a kind of next generation pipelines and old pipelines, or first generation. And we're also creating Docker images. And so this is a good thing. So this is a Git resource, actually from the CI code where the tasks are in. And I'll have to do my best now to find where the stuff is. Oh, this is bad. Oh, here. Okay, variables. Yeah, okay. So one of the parameters of the Git resource is actually the branch. So it pins this to the branch. There are other Git resources for Concourse that looks at every branch, but then the functionality is kind of less. So a Git resource for Concourse is actually pinned to one branch, and that's why we said, okay, so that's kind of a challenge there, because that's no flexibility. So people already came up with something called, or the concept of a branch manager. Now, I really disliked the lack of, sort of convenience there for Concourse, because something like GitHub has that automatically. But that's because they say, well, a repository in all its branches is kind of linked to the pipeline. So they have this kind of managing of branches in pipelines inherently. So you have to, not you have to, but we're using some kind of branch manager that says, okay, well, there is a new branch, poof, let's spin up a new pipeline, and also that's our thing, let's create all those resources if needs be. And there are different so they're so the resources that you're using in your branch for development are all identified by your branch name. And again, it costs money. No. So another hand there, a question. Yeah.
Is Concourse also used by software engineers to build?
Oh, at NN.
NN, yeah.
Yeah. So besides from all this technical stuff, and I know it's 8 o'clock, but I try to also be one of the DevOps evangelists. Anyone that's working in a big company, transformation is hard, and people are often beginning at like 0. So I'm not going to give them this. So we surface out GitLab CI as a service, and I'm glad you also like the perspective of GitLab CI, and that's easy to begin with. And if they require more complexity there, then we'll see what happens and provide this also as a service. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you use these pipelines also in the next steps of your deployments?
Yeah. So the actual deployment.
Yeah.
Yes. So in the sense that we're almost done with the a pattern for blue-green deployment with Concourse, with Terraform, with our kind of complex way of developing infrastructure as we speak. But it's hard. And when functionality changes of Terraform or AWS or even Concourse, sometimes you'll have to refactor and redesign. But you'll have to start somewhere. And once it works, hopefully tomorrow will be very happy. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Have you looked at Spinnaker?
No. Well, from afar. Okay. Yeah.
It looks everything looks very easy, but I think if you
have to start at zero, then it will be difficult in the beginning.
Yeah, so that's a kind of a trick question, could be, because everything could be. So one, it is very easy. It will be difficult in the beginning because you kind of have to learn the domain language of Concourse. But that's it basically. But once you see the possibilities, then it becomes hard because you have to kind of create the most efficient way of setting up your pipelines, and don't get lost in the possibilities. That's what we've done. You can do all kinds of, you can do fan in, fan out, so that's really cool, and you can do all kinds of in parallel and stuff. Start easy first and then build. Questions? Awesome, well, thank you very much.